Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and boy, I have taken some heat on this broadcast. I mean, it is unbelievable the remarks I'm getting on the sidebars. So, this ought to be one hell of a good show. Anyway, I announced this show. Sales are softening. Inventory is backing up on the lots. Sales and salespeople are abandoning ship. The reckoning has arrived. Used cars are dropping like a rock. And this has been our mainstay profit center for more than 10 years. You can't depend on used cars. What can you depend on? Sadly, your CRM was not designed to handle this process.
Good one.
The CRM was designed for prosperous times. Your CRM was not designed to pick up slowing sales, differentiation in leads. We've always been paying attention to the age of the lead instead of what we have in inventory and need to sell. And vAuto can't save your ass either.
No, that's for sure. It couldn't save you. It couldn't save you as before the pandemic.
No.
And Dr. Dawg and his minions are on the case. April Simmons, Max Zanan, Jason Harris, Jennifer Briggs, and the irascible Alpha Dog himself. This is the Dawg Pound. Starting with Jason Harris. Hey, big boy.
What's going on, Jim?
Did I announce the show correctly?
You did. I was going to say there was about as many good clickbait taglines as we could possibly shove into a single sentence right there. I love it. It was great.
One guy commented on the sidebar, well, you're full of it, not in the Northeast. The Northeast is immune.
They're immune to slowing cells.
He said, you're starting to sound
they're
like
interest rate
CNN.
hike.
He said, you're starting to sound like CNN. I mean, and another guy said, you're full of it. I mean,
so what does that imply that we're like the Fox News of like automotive then?
Well, what it implies, Jason, is if we look at what the roles of those individuals are, it means their leadership team's doing a good job because they're not feeling it yet.
There you go. I like it.
one salesman said, only salesmen bailed out of the dealership are those that suck.
Yeah, but well, we'll jump into that in
Max,
I got a comment on that.
I gotta pull myself back here.
Max Zanan, the mad Russian, the king of reinsurance, published author. And what's your newest book?
I mean, check this out. Definitive Guide to F&I with foreword by Jim Ziegler.
Foreword by Jim Ziegler. I've labored over that foreword.
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I did a podcast yesterday with Automotive News, and it's going to go live this Friday. It's called Daily Drive.
Really?
And it's all about this book.
Oh,
You know, just a little bit of shameless self-promotion here.
do you have a picture? Do you have a picture of one of their editors with farm animals? What?
Yes, of course.
April, what are we gonna do with these guys?
I know. The worst is that I'm as bad as they are most of the time. So
Right.
And we're talking about the Empress of Executive Management, Jennifer Briggs. Hi, kid.
Hey, Jim. Yeah, I know. I had to restrain myself a little bit from some of the comments earlier when you announced today's show because, you know, it's always so funny when people are like, nuh-uh. Last month was great. But what they don't realize is we're not talking about right now today, part of what we do is we talk about things that are going to be affecting the dealership operations in the near future.
No, not exactly. No. We're talking
Well,
about right
no.
now.
What I mean is the doom and gloom Chicken Little comments that they're making is what I'm
Believe
specifically.
me, I have spoken to more than 100 dealers, principals this week.
Oh, for
Not,
sure.
not
The
on the
dealer
key, not on the keyboard, telephone. I have talked to 100 dealer principals in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Well,
I'm selling an F&I seminar.
And that's kind of what I meant, and not to downplay any of the engagement from our sales professionals, and especially our senior and tenured sales professionals who remember what it was like to have to work for a deal and for that great gross profit, right? Not discrediting them in any way, but what we're talking about are things that most likely would not necessarily be felt by that position just yet, if their operators are doing a good job. And I think if, what I'm hoping today is we kind of, because used cars, I'm all about used cars, have always been since the first day I stepped out of the accounting office, because I came from the accounting office. And, it's easy to follow the profitability to pick your favorite departments. And I think today's show is going to be a great show. And I hope that, of course, the dealers that are contacting you for your F&I seminar are more progressive and trying to stay ahead of it. I hope today we can give some information to some folks that maybe don't have it on their radar just yet, so they can start getting ready so that their salespeople never feel it, like some of the commenters on the thread.
Let's start out with what I said. The reckoning is here. Oh, believe me, it is here. And before we get into that subject in depth, what is your latest title, April?
I don't know. What do we?
The Duchess of Productivity.
Yeah, there you
go. Duchess of Productivity. I'm gonna write.
I remember it because
I got so many of them now.
Well, I'm feeling that way. I've got so many irons in the fire right now, all over the place, and part of it boils down to exactly what we're going to talk about today. Look, there's one thing that is an absolute fact. History repeats itself over and over again. It's a fact. It's literally like what goes up must come down. It's a fact. So the reality is that whether you're in it right now, you're about to be in it, or you're going to be in it in the little bit further out future, it will come. What we do today and how we prepare is how bad is it going to hurt or change or adjust your bottom line. So it's important whether or not you're actually feeling it or not, because again, history repeats itself. It will come back around.
Now, a lot of the remarks were, Jim, you're right on, so darn true. I mean, so is it by area of the country? No, it's not by area of the country. Is it by make and model of the car? No, it's not. I mean, I've talked to dealers that sales have grind to a crushing halt. The banks have retracted. The banks are not buying as deep as they once did. Subprime is having a struggle right now. Is this what we're experiencing, guys, or am I just imagining this?
I think what I've seen in some places is that the LTV is off, so the banks aren't moving forward. We're not able to get as many customers into the vehicles that we have in stock because we don't necessarily have the right inventory on our lots to handle the current interest rates and our current financial situation with our customers.
We can't handle the current interest rate. Also, delinquencies and repossessions are at record highs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jason?
The used car market does not change what a customer can afford in their monthly budget. Unfortunately, we have to be prepared to provide wheels that will fit into their monthly budget, whether it's what we typically would stock or not.
Well, affordability, but also borrowing power. Like, anybody out there that was on a fluctuating interest rate within their mortgages. I mean, I have some friends now that, their mortgage is now going to be $1 million mortgage, but they bought a $600,000 house, but just in the changes in interest rates alone. So, I mean, that automatically impacts your borrowing capabilities. All right. That hugely impacts what the banks look at and say, look, you're already leveraged at this point, even though, yes, you're figuring out a way to pay for your house, and congrats. I'm so glad you're doing that. But you've extended yourself now out, but no one did it voluntarily either. It automatically happened. It's going to have a significant impact. It's having an impact right now.
If sales indeed are soft, why are sales soft?
I think economics has probably one of the biggest factors for sales. I mean, every close friend and family member I know right now that would typically be rotating their vehicle out around the 3rd or 4th year time is they have all intentions of keeping it for at least a couple more years until interest rates are back down.
Dealers either have a glut of inventory on the ground or a shortage of inventory on the ground.
Yeah, there's such a wild swing, right?
Let me go to April on this one, because you've got multi-franchises. You're the only person on this panel who's actively working as an executive that runs dealerships. And you've got different franchises. Is that a true statement I just made?
Yes, true statement. And I'm going to jump in on a couple of different things that were just said. Number one, I think there is a difference in different parts of the country, but here's why. It's because there's still pent-up demand. So in certain areas, that pent-up demand is still cycling through. That's why salespeople aren't feeling it yet. Because right now, those people that need a car that can't afford it, we're just telling them, we're sorry, we can't help. And that's really what's happening right now. You see what I'm saying? So to the salespeople, they still have all the opportunities they need to sell as many cars as they need to sell. That's why they're not feeling it yet in the areas where there's been this pent-up demand for such a long period of time. Once that evens itself out, then those people will start to feel exactly what you guys are saying. But there are areas of the country, because of massive growth like Phoenix is experiencing, where maybe we're not feeling it so much. Now, the other aspect is this massive swing in inventory, and it's frustrating. It's rewarding if you're the guy that has all the inventory now. But if you're the guy that doesn't, this swing is massive. So, I've got stores that have 900 cars, and 3 miles away, my store has 30 cars.
Wait a second, same brand.
Same brand, because what's happened is as they start to build the high volume stores, they literally are giving them all these massive amount of cars, and those stores are still not at a place of saying we want to turn it down, right? Because we've been short for so long. So the trickle down to help the smaller and the medium-sized stores, they're massively feeling a pinch because now they can't compete. At least when none of us had inventory, it was apples to apples. Now you don't have a level playing field, even in the same brand. So you have massive swings brand to brand, but you also have massive springs in the same brand that is creating some issues with trying to scale.
Well, that's what, April, I think used cars has got to be your delimiter, right? And again, you can't control allocation, right? Regardless, even as the big guy, sometimes you just get what you get, right? It might not be something that turns quickly, but you got to make do with what you have to make do with on the new car side of things. But on the used car side of things, we can be in control and we can kind of drive the bus there. So I think it's so important to focus on that.
I spoke with Jason Rice yesterday.
Yeah, from Lot Pop.
I'm seeing him tomorrow.
And Jason and I shared some insights that he had. Used car values are dropping like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they've been steadily dropping since September.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
auction rates have been dropping since September, and the retail prices are never more than 60 days.
This isn't steadily dropping, though. This is dropping.
No, I know what I'm saying. It has been
steady. Accelerating. Max,
I don't think that it's been extreme, though. I think that we're seeing it seems to be extreme because it's on the high dollar stuff, because as we're starting to get new car inventory, that's where it's at. But in the wheels that we need for the customers that actually need cars, don't want to just buy a new car, those pricing are not. The $12,000 to $20,000 vehicles that we all need for our showrooms, acquisition is still a massive problem in that area. In the section of vehicles we really, really need, we still can't find them.
You can't get them financed.
You can't
get them or
I can't
find
get
them.
them. I can't
Oh,
buy
all right. I misheard you.
the pricing for those vehicles, people are still massively overpaying, and so I'm not seeing those book values drop. I'm seeing the high dollar stuff. If it's north of $25,000, that's starting to drop. But the stuff that's in that, $10,000.
I understand. Got it.
Yeah. Well, April, one of the things that puts groups in a unique position, and I will tell you, this is a tactic that I utilized here in Detroit a few years ago, was because, of course, it's always hard to, with some of these cars we would normally walk away on or wholesale, because we don't have the time in our service lanes to do the repairs, or we're afraid that the RO is going to be too much. But I tell you what, if you take something in at 8 and you put 5 in it and sell it for 20, you're still doing pretty good. But it comes to, do you have the capacity to get that through your shop? And I will tell you, what we did was we took one of our slower stores. I mean, it was a Hyundai store in the middle of the Detroit metro. Like, that's pretty hard to move that new car metal. So my service lane at department at that store had more capacity. So we, at the group level, utilized that for recon on what we called our budget vehicles or our wholesale to the public lot, so that we had a steady flow of those cars. We would have been wholesaling them to somebody else anyways. And why let them take the profit at a B lot when we could get it at my store?
Well, I will tell you,
Max, you mentioned to me earlier.
We wholesale nothing. We wholesale absolutely nothing, and I still cannot get enough of those vehicles. My buy here, pay here lot, we can't acquire, like, there is not,
because you have a buy here,
enough
pay here
of those vehicles for us to actually fill that lot. And my stores are keeping much more because they can't go and acquire those vehicles. So my new car facilities are keeping those. And to your point, though, Jennifer, that's a brilliant idea that we actually do. Much so that we've opened up third shift, and third shift only handles recon.
For folks listening, that is so important. If you don't have it, the third shift, if you can do it, because that's going to be what's going to differentiate who's going to survive the constriction and the used car profits. And of course you do that.
A group of geniuses.
I
cannot take all the credit in that area.
Do you have a Honda store, April?
No Honda.
Okay. Max and I had a conversation this past week, and I've spoken to a number of the top Honda dealers in the country. Max, what were you seeing there?
So Honda is the opposite of Chrysler, I guess. And they don't have cars, and it doesn't matter who you are. Even if you're Brian Benstock, you're not getting that allocation. And just as a side note, I'd like to make this point for all the dealers that sell OEM F&I products, right? Because the carrot that they dangle in front of you is that you're going to get a better allocation. I hope COVID and post-COVID situation completely destroyed that myth, right? You're not getting a better allocation just because you sell factory F&I products. Now, getting back to our conversation, I think banks are preparing for something bad.
Yeah.
And that's why they're either reducing LTV or they're pulling out completely, either from floor plan or from retail finance. But guys, I want to be optimistic here and say that 98% of bank analysts are useless. They don't know what they're talking about because they've never been inside a car.
Is that a research statistic?
Right.
98%.
I can find that. I can find that online if I Google it right now.
Right. I guarantee you that in 2008, prior to Lehman Brothers going bankrupt, right? None of these bank analysts, even 48 hours prior to the bankruptcy, could say that Lehman is going down. And now these geniuses are going to tell us what's going to happen in automotive retail when they can't figure out their own backyard. So I would completely disregard that. Now, when it comes to inventory, especially Chrysler, because everybody thinks Chrysler has like millions of cars, they have millions of cars that nobody wants to buy. Nobody is buying that Renegade, right? Which is a rebranded Fiat 500, right? And nobody is buying a Grand
What do you
Wagoneer
really
for
think, Max?
$110,000 when you for the same price point can probably get a Land Rover.
Okay.
So we also got to be realistic. And the final point here is, at the end of the day, during the pandemic, it wasn't just the dealers that made a killing. It was the OEMs as well. So unless OEMs bring back heavy duty rebates, we are screwed, right? But they will, right? Because at some point, math is math. Right. And I'll give you an example. I think prior to the pandemic,
They've already started subsidizing interest rates.
correct. So prior to the pandemic, I think an average rebate was almost 10% of the MSRP. And during the pandemic, it was less than 5%. So what do you think happened to all that money and went to the bottom line of the car manufacturer, not to the car dealer, right? So there's a ton of money sitting on a sideline that they will bring back to stimulate demand, to offset the insane interest rates. So I wouldn't panic. I think we're going to be okay.
Jason, check in.
I think we're going to be okay. That's what I think we're going to be okay. I don't know if I can bet on that. I don't know.
Well,
Can I put odds?
we're scrappy in this business.
Can I
So
put odds? I think we're going to be okay. Look, I think maybe it's the Boy Scout in me coming out. That's just like be
Oh,
prepared.
you're not going to give some woke shit now, are you?
No.
But Jason, did you go through 2008?
I did. In fact, actually, that's when I moved out of the U.S. to Canada. Was actually during that time frame. I said, I'm out. I'm done.
And there wasn't even a war on.
You could go through my neighborhood at that time and say green, brown. It was, you could tell whose grass was dying and which houses were in foreclosure. So I was living actually in New Mexico at the time. It was pretty bad during that time frame. So anyways, I digress. But I think for me, I read these headlines and I can see the extreme on one side and the extreme on the other, and just it's the inner Boy Scout in me say, just be prepared. I think that's, I can't tell you how many times I had contingency plans, kind of mapped out in my desk drawer when I was a dealer principal of just in case, if this actually happened, what would we do? And I think that's just part of being a proactive.
Contingency plans. Plan B is for losers.
I don't know, man. I'm always
prior preparation and planning
Exactly.
prevents poor
I
performance.
never
My
had
good
a
friend Sean
plan B in my
said
whole
There we
life.
go, 100%. But no, I mean, I think that's what it is. I think dealers out there that are listening and watching are looking at what is coming in as far as allocation and look at where it's being sold versus what their profit margins are versus what the banks are saying versus how many people are getting bought versus not bought. I think it's just a matter of, this is just a good time to just say, what if, and what would that look like, and what would we do as in operations to deal with whatever may come, and I think I think we'll be okay plan should be in place, and then the oh shit plan should also be in place.
Okay, so I said sales are softening, inventory's backing up on lots. Now Max pointed out that that's brand by brand. Salespeople are abandoning ship. Now, we have seen salespeople quitting dealerships left and right.
I think, but we all knew that because for the last couple of years, when people have just gotten into the business and they thought that it was like that, and their leadership
We
team
predicted this. We predicted it, but now it's a reality. April, jump in on that because you're in the dealerships.
It's 100% happening, and just like y'all said, we've been saying this since day one. But it's kind of like the train wreck, in slow motion. You know it's going to happen. There's really not a whole lot you can do about it. preparation that Jason is talking about in that area is just the actual fact of knowing it's going to happen. Are you always interviewing? Are you always talking to people? Are you making sure that you're communicating with your staff? Are you realizing that, yes, you're going to have to do some rinse and repeat, which is never fun, which means we got to go back to basics. I'm going to hire somebody who doesn't know anything, and now I got to train them on everything and lay out like solid expectations on what that looks like. And then, but at the end of the day, just know 20% of your staff is probably not going to be here in a year because of the grass is greener mentality. It's just a fact. Especially if you grew right before the pandemic, if you were in growth mode, you have a significant amount of staff who did not sell cars prior to, who did not have to grind and work and get minis and all of those things. So we're definitely going to have some transition with that. But again, history repeats itself. This is cycle number 5 for me of this is what's going to happen, how it's going to go down, and just accept that and move forward.
Yeah. And listen, guys, there's somebody on the sidebar, Promotive Car.
I'm writing him a note right now.
Give me a break. All my dealers are killing it. This is a bunch of
dealers. He's self-promoting his company.
Right.
Right.
Right. The number one Honda dealer on planet Earth is not killing it. Right. But all his
tell people right now, do not do business with Promotive Car. Do not do business with it, because if he's got to get on my
I don't know who they are.
If he's got to get on my sidebar,
not about pricing, it's about
start
content.
selling his product, get out of here. I wish I was where you are. I'd kick your ass through the field goals.
Listen, we charge for commercial spots on this show, buddy.
We do commercials.
Hey, I gotta appreciate it. I generally gotta appreciate it. It's like the people who go on your website and fill out the form fill to try to sell you something, right? Like, you gotta appreciate the effort.
Yeah, but listen, guys, I want to make a point regarding Tesla, right? Because Tesla is like selling cars left and right, and they truly are killing it, right? And nobody really thinks why they're killing it, right? All you need to do, right, is just Google their residual value.
And to be a highly desirable luxury brand.
It's not a highly desirable luxury brand. It's an
demand
iPad.
For years and years.
It's an iPad with 4 wheels and 4 doors. But there's some fungible math going on, because guess who controls the residual? The manufacturer, right? And what do you think the residual is on Model 3 after 3 years?
It's huge.
It's over 85%. You mean to
tell
me this
hang on though. Wait a second. That happened a few years back where OEMs were overstating residuals, and that landed us in the last damn recession.
Right. But all I'm saying is that the OEMs now need to support their leasing programs to get people in cars. I'm not saying they need to go to an 85 or 80% residual in a 3-year lease, but you have to support it, because the amount of money that was made in the last 2.5 years is just absolutely insane.
But I can always tell who has the better residuals based on when I go to order an Uber. There was a period of time, almost every Uber I ordered was a Honda Accord. And I'm telling you right now, I've been traveling a lot for the last few weeks, and I'd be willing to bet at 60, maybe upwards of 70, let's say a little over 60% of all the Ubers I've taken, over the last month have been Model 3s, Teslas. It's crazy. At one point it was this, now it's this. At one point you saw an obscene amount of Escalades in Ubers, and now that's gone.
Well, the owning price of a Tesla is going up.
That's why they're Ubering.
The insurance premiums on a Tesla are going up, because the most minor accident with a Tesla is a total.
You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
I know Max is such a big fan, but I get sick and tired of talking about Tesla.
I'm
to
not a
be perfectly
fan.
Okay.
That's the point, Jennifer. I'm not a fan. I'm
But
just
I want to actually disagree with Max, so this is going to be a fun moment because
right,
you
but
know,
Oh no.
I'm just pointing out the fact that when a company like Tesla is managed by someone who has his finger on the pulse, they make certain decisions very quickly. Whereas other OEMs that have this managerial class
It's delayed.
completely removed from the ownership, right? Their decision making is extremely slow. And that's the difference. I'm not defending Tesla. I'm just pointing out the fact that they actually had multiple price decreases this year and their residual values are very strong. And this is exactly what OEMs need to be doing to stimulate car sales.
yes and no. I will tell you that they have to be very cautious. See, Tesla has a unique niche part of the market, which means they can afford to go super high on those residuals and not worry about future consequences because they're not going to have this mass area of issue. I concern, and I've watched this happen. You can raise residual values to a certain point, but if they go too high, we're going to have a double-edged sword in that 2 to 3 years because if we look backwards, we haven't sold enough cars. So we already know we have a shortage in used vehicles. If they go too high and those prices now are too close to what a new car payment's going to be on the new one, you're going to plummet that, and you're talking about just kicking a can that could actually bite you harder. So I'm going to kind of disagree with you, Max. Now, I do agree that they need to go hard on incentivizing those leases. Let's get these money factors in and get these payments, do some down payment assistance, take that burden, but they need to still be very cautious because Hyundai cannot overinflate residuals like Tesla can. They just can't do it.
Right, I agree with you, but at the end of the day, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about a manufacturer incentivizing sales, whether through residual, whether through incentives or money factor. The reason Tesla can afford to inflate their residual values is because none of these cars are coming back. Right, they're not taking them to the auction. The idea is that one day in the future, they will convert all these lease returns into a fleet of robo taxis with autonomous driving. Whether it's going to happen in our lifetime or not is irrelevant, right? So maybe April is right. We don't need to inflate residuals, but then you have to subsidize through rebates or subsidize through reduced money factor.
Yes, yes. And that I think is coming. I mean, we're already seeing incentivized rates start to happen. Why? Because consumers are demanding it. They're like, I'm not going to pay 7%. And cars are starting to sit on lots. So what's the first thing they do? Okay, let's incentivize these rates. Next will be the rebates. And then once we get past that, then we'll start to see highly incentivized leasing.
Yeah, well, and General Motors, what it was a couple weeks ago in Automotive News, has made a commitment to building more, and I can't remember which vehicle it was. I think it's the redesigned, oh gosh, which one? It was a sedan. It's going to be more like the HHR now. They've extended the wheelbase, but they are pushing towards a $25,000 higher volume new car. That is part of their plan to help offset some of this affordability issues that we're seeing across the country. And I think looking at that and realistically putting out product that American consumers can afford to have is huge. And Max, I'm not disagreeing with you that manufacturers should definitely take a different route. I definitely don't think they're in our corner as dealers. It's not something I ever think of since, I mean, especially why I said in the beginning, the way that you have to control this right now, because we can't control the OEM. We can make all the suggestions we want, but what we can control is our used car department so that we can offset these things and make sure that our team still eats while we wait for them to pull their heads out of the sand.
Now, I made a statement in the opening, vAuto can't save you. What do you think I meant by that, April?
Oh, that's really, really simple. I mean, people put so much faith into software nowadays, like software is going to magically like bring the cars in and magically sell them and price them a proper
Right. Without spending any time configuring it so it fits your market.
Right, exactly. But it's laughable because, you know, even over the last couple of years, as acquisition's been the number one thing, people still don't even log in and look at vAuto trends or look at what's happening in their own lot. Like, it's bananas to me that people genuinely believe all they have to do is sign a check and plug in software and things just work.
Well, and that's because for the last 2 years they could ignore the data and still operate with a profit.
Yeah,
So-
but guys, you know, also, you know, I don't want to sound like an attack on vAuto, but it is, right?
wait, is it attack on vAuto or the user?
It's actually an attack on Cox Automotive, I think.
Okay, well there we go.
Because
I'm all
vAuto,
for that. What are we attacking them about?
so vAuto is owned by Cox, right? And so is Manheim. And if you as a dealer cannot see the connection between the two endpoints, right, then maybe you shouldn't be a dealer, right? Because vAuto is telling you to price the car here, and if you can't sell it, what does it tell you? Well, take it to Manheim. So guess what happens? You pay the monthly fee for vAuto, and then you pay the seller's or the buyer's fee at Manheim. I mean, this is double dipping.
Is there a
to the
conflict of
10th
interest
power.
there?
Just a little bit of a
Is there
conflict of
Is there a
interest.
conflict there, Max?
Right. This is a little bit, tiny bit.
I mean, if you've drank the Kool-Aid and don't use any of your own, you know, the stuffing that's up here when
Yeah,
you're using
but
it.
Jennifer, if you speak to, you know, an average dealer, I guarantee you that they happen to be clients of vAuto and they use Manheim. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean,
I'm not disagreeing with you on this.
20
I'm saying that, and I will tell you, the first year we had vAuto in my dealerships, and I wasn't on the operations side then. I was still running the accounting offices. The first year we had vAuto was the first year we lost money in our used car department.
right, because it's designed for you to lose money.
Well, then I got involved, of course, and we reconfigured and we customized and we made sure that our teams were trained. Actually, I remember saying to Auto Trader when they called me up one time, "Oh, what can we do?" I said, "Well, you know, it would be lovely if you would send Dale Pollock to Detroit to train my sales managers to use this tool, considering how much money I lost that year."
I mean, look at Jim Ganther. I mean,
They actually did.
look at Jim Ganther. I mean, he's killing it on the sideline.
I know. I see
Yeah.
that.
Oh man. You know, I think that a tool is a tool, and without training, it's the same thing as the CRM. As we're talking about, the CRMs aren't made to do this. And I tell people this all the time. And a fair warning, just like Max is plugging his book, I work with a lot of dealers reconfiguring their CRM system so that they actually support their sales and service and acquisition department.
Jen, you should write a book about it.
We should. Yes. There we go.
Max will help you get it published on Amazon.
I know, right? Max will help me there. I'm just busy doing it on the asphalt all the time. You're right, though, Max.
Right.
I definitely should write a book about
I
it.
mean,
Jason, you tried to get a word in edgewise several
That's okay.
times.
I don't mind. Jennifer's got to. I mean, like, you're 100% right. Tool's only as good as who's utilizing the tool. Like a set of wrenches in my hand, the ROI is very, very little. Set of wrenches in a technician's hand, there's significant ROI to it. You know, but I also, going back to vAuto, you know, the thing that we've seen is we've seen some great, amazing competitors, you know, without those levels of conflict of interest pop up recently. I mean, Jim, you had mentioned Jason Rice earlier. I mean,
Yeah.
a hell of a good product, you know, too. And so, but again, the data is only as good as how well you take action on it. And, you know, that goes into how well is it connected to the CRM? What is the process behind it? And I figure that's probably going to be
How do you train the person using it?
exactly.
Well, Dale Pollock, the guy that invented vAuto, or allegedly invented it, I'm sure he did. But anyway, I can tell you,
It was a partnership in the beginning, if you remember. It was First Look. Then the two executives, I can't remember the other fellow's name that was doing it with Dale. They had a difference in opinion for how it should function and work, and they split off. You had First Look, which I think is now Max Digital, and vAuto as the two primary competitors. But since then, I mean, there's a litany of them, to Jason's point.
anyway, let me get back to the Dale Pollock story. So anyway,
Okay, get to your Dale Pollock story.
the Dale Pollock story. He was in my audience, and I had a conversation with him, and only conversation I think I've ever had with him. And I said, there comes a point where everybody's got vAuto, and you're driving the price of cars down. But one thing that Dale Pollock or anybody else in the market can't do is go in the men's room and piss out some more customers. I mean, you're not going to create any more customers than are already in the market. And that's the fallacy of vAuto and any competitor of vAuto. If you're driving the price down to be competitive, guess what? You're not going to create any more customers.
But that's not the point of that software
Exactly.
system.
Thank you for me. I was just about to say the same thing because it goes way beyond. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Right. It's not, the point is not to, now when it's in the hands of and it doesn't matter if it's vAuto or
if everybody is using the process, inventory turns becomes irrelevant.
So I teach a class at Northwood, and I'm actually going to be speaking on this at a education only conference in August about how you should strategically be managing your used car department. And it's not just about your price. It's not just about one particular metric.
We realize that.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. So for some of you who don't know, Jennifer, I
want to give a used car a fair chance to make a profit. I don't want to prejudge on what the rest of the market's doing.
And if I could take it at 110% of price to market in the first 5 days, I'm gonna, right?
Well, not if you vAuto it and down price it before you even start.
It's more than that. It's to Jennifer's point. It's not just about the price on one piece of individual inventory. This one piece, if I have 19 of the same exact vehicle and they're slow turners, I might need to low price that vehicle. And I need to know what that low price is against my competition.
April, I don't mean to sound like a dummy, right? But why do you need vAuto during the last 2.5 years?
Over the last 2.5 years, we didn't need anything. I mean,
right.
Because they are.
How many dealers kept paying?
You just answered your own question.
Right.
But now when it comes about management, you absolutely do.
Pollock is a great man. He's invented a
Let her answer the question.
We use vAuto. There are other products out there. There are a plethora of them, and some of them I've looked at, and I even still consider some of them because I think some of them are getting better about looking at things in a more proactive versus a looking back kind of a vision, and I appreciate that. But you have to understand that inventory management tools are not about how to price your vehicle. It's about how to stock your lot. I will tell you, I have 2 stores that basically share.
I agree with that.
That's what it's for. It's an inventory management tool. It's not about pricing them. It's about pricing them so that you can sell them and maximize profit at your store. It is not a set it and forget it tool. You don't say, vAuto says I should price at 20,000. Okay, I price at 20,000.
But a lot do it that way.
Yeah, and that new profit time plugin that they have and anybody from Cox is watching the show. I'd love somebody to try to sell me the value of that. I've removed it in several of my consulting dealerships because it just.
I've removed it in all mine.
Well, and vAuto also, don't forget, it helps with your merchandising. And I don't even have to. I like to set up automated reports to deliver every morning for the different department managers so that we don't even have to get in it, just showing up in front of their faces. But it's about a lot. It's about controlling your days to market. How fast are you getting those cars through recon and ready? Because the costs are huge if you can't do that. It's about making sure that your merchandising team is working properly.
In my sales manager seminar, Jennifer, I teach. It is an acquisition tool. It is an onboarding tool for a car, and it's a disposal car tool. When I use vAuto, and I'm telling dealers. By the way, a lot of humor in this show, a lot of sarcasm, but I actually think my dealer needs a tool, something like vAuto. I don't necessarily recommend vAuto or
Well, you talked to
Yeah, we
Jason
are.
the other day. There you go. You can recommend that. Lot walk.
Well, I keep, and I said this a few weeks ago, and I'm going to say it again because all these software companies like to watch our show in playback. What I would challenge one of them to do is start bringing in Google Search Console data into their tool for acquisition purposes. Because if I sell what I've always sold, and especially over the last couple of years, that's going to be skewed with what the demand is going forward. I don't know that I've had 8,000 people on my website looking for XYZ because I don't sell a lot of it. But if they could actually integrate and start pulling some, because I'm not going to expect a used car manager or general sales manager to log into Google Search Console and flip through all of that type of data, but it's highly valuable. And it's something that I've been utilizing in my stocking strategies for years. April, do you get in there and look?
Jennifer, just take a look to your right.
Who's on there?
Nobody. That's the point, right? Because nobody uses vAuto the way it was intended to be used, right? It's an autopilot. You just pay the monthly
That's
fee,
the problem. Yes.
right? And that's it.
That's,
right? So you
Yeah,
can
but
tell,
okay, you're
you
not
can tell
wrong.
me it's the disposal.
And it's
tool.
not the only piece of software dealers do that.
Yeah,
with,
exactly,
Matt.
exactly. But you can tell me it's a disposal tool, it's this tool, it's that tool. Nobody cares. It's an autopilot. It's a billing program, right? And if
Same
you
with
need
If
a
you don't have somebody holding your team accountable, it's all those things. I
Right.
use it as an accountability tool because I
Right.
can easily go in there and say, hey, your age is at this, your vehicles are at this, this is where this is. I can look at
a simple doc, April, a simple doc can do that, right? If you know how to manage an inventory, you run a daily doc, right? And you know what's in stock, right? You also mentioned that, it helps you stock the lot. The last 2.5 years, you couldn't stock the lot. You didn't need any recommendations, right? The recommendation was useless because you couldn't get the car. So my question is why dealers kept paying for vAuto on a monthly basis, and when are the refunds coming?
Here's the thing,
Now there is somebody on Jennifer's right.
There we go. Now I got some.
Yeah, CJ called me Bobbie, but that's okay. It happens.
This is what happens with a lot of these tech companies, and I'm consulting with a handful of these tech companies. Right? Is they start off with great intentions, and what you'll typically find is that even though they're a tech company, they're a people-first technology company, and you'll see some of the biggest CRMs also started this way. Right? It was a people-first technology second type of methodology. And then they get to a certain size and capacity, and then they kind of just totally forget about the whole people aspect of it and completely focus on the technology. I mean, I get asked all the time, Jason, like, how do I look for who should I find? Who should I go? I said, you got to find someone out there that still has at the core a people methodology before the technology. And I know we're going to start talking about CRMs, and this is very, very true as well. We're in an industry now that's looking for the easy button. We want.
I didn't mean to, Jason. I didn't mean to single out vAuto as a whole topic of conversation.
But it's a great example.
It's a metaphor originally.
Highly relevant.
Technology companies.
Yeah, any technology companies like this, they start off with good intentions, then they move to just focusing on just sales, and they forget it. Look, like one of the first jobs I had as a kid was working for Radio Shack. Like back then, it was a thing to work for them, right? Like it was a big deal. Like you had to have education. There were courses. There was 27 books that you had to go through to learn just to be this. You had questions, we had answers. That was all. It was a people first kind of mentality. And of course, you've seen companies lose this over the years, and that's when they start getting used as examples on podcasts.
Well, but some of the other things, and I share this with any of these technology companies. I've said it for years. Part of the problem is when they develop these product timelines, they're developing them as software developers, not as dealers or car salespeople. After I reconfigure CRM for my clients, we start the retraining by saying, hey, listen, we know your CRM has given you dumb stuff to do. That's because software designers don't sell cars. Don't worry, we've retrained it and reprogrammed it so that it will help you and not just give you more work. It's working with you instead of against you. Because a lot of these systems, and just like Max said, and don't make me agree with Max, you guys, what the heck? Just like Max said, said, these software systems are very expensive, not just in the monthly cost, but the opportunity and income lost if you go on set it and forget it.
But we're going to see more of this. Actually, Jim, this should be another podcast because we could talk a whole podcast about AI and that how this is becoming such a big impact in our business that, this set it and forget it model, people are gravitating to it in just waves.
Every industry.
Every industry is,
Well-
especially now with AI and ChatGPT out there and what you can do with it from a technology perspective.
Well, one comment I want to throw out. One of my favorite smart people, he always tells me this. He says, process
What did I tell you?
You're one of them too. But he says to me all the time, process should drive technology, not the other way around. And unfortunately, what we're seeing now is a lot of technology trying to drive process.
Yes.
That's why all these things break. That's why they don't work. But Jason, to your point, the reason that I think we're seeing acceleration in the need and want of set it and forget it is because we have a massive epidemic of not enough staff. So when people have been pushed and run too thin and they don't have people, they need something to plug it. And all the promises of AI is this takes away, humans now don't need to do this. They don't need to do that. And unfortunately, you really still have to be on top of that. I think that it can be a good helper for us. But do I think that it can take over? Absolutely not. And to your point, a whole nother conversation. But technology in and of itself needs to start being driven by the people first, by the process first, not the other way around. Don't come in here with your tech telling me how I need to change how I do things to make your tech work proper.
Right. That's my favorite part. It's like, there was, and I know that there are some different companies that have been using AI in their CRMs. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to say that disdainfully. Because
no, you can't. Because I think in our industry, we've actually done a horrible job of actually identifying the difference between automation, machine learning, and actual AI. There's bits and pieces of it out there, but our industry decided to bucket all three of those things into a single term. So
well, it was funny because there was this CRM company, and I don't even recall the name of it. I don't think they really made it past launch. This would have been approximately 5 or 6 years ago. And they were the first ones plugged, oh, look, we have AI and da-da-da-da-da. I was like, okay, well, walk me through your tool. How do I put in my own loyalty process? How do I reconfigure this to support what we're doing on the sales floor? And well, Jennifer, you don't need to do that. The machine knows exactly who you need to talk to and when you need to talk to them and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, so your machine that's barely 6 months old knows more than I know in my entire career as a e-commerce director leading sales teams across multiple dealerships. You can't even let me feed the brain to drive the tasks. Like that's a false narrative. And like April said, process should be driving the software. It should be driving the tech, or the super smart person that April is quoting who said that. It's absolutely right. And if your technology does not allow you to customize to the culture of your dealerships, I would challenge to say it's not a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
And then, like we always say, inspect what you expect. Like, do not sign up with things. You have to inspect what you expect. Once you plug these things in, even if you think it's a set it and forget it. I do think that AI has a lot of value, but it's a buzzword, just like CDP. I mean, there's so many buzzwords out there, caution tape, like get out the yellow caution tape, wrap it around these things, and just know that you've got to take a pause.
Right. Or when somebody says it, say, I'd love for you to expand on that idea for me so I understand what you're talking about. And then you're going to find out, are they actually real, machine learning AI tools, or is it just a regurgitating bot of some sort? Going through there. We are twins, CJ, don't worry. It happens all the time.
but it is all about that balance, right? And I think if any dealership out there that's watching and listening to this right now, if you have more technology than you have people, then you have a problem. Someone said it in the comments down before, we are still a people industry. At least we say we are. We say that we're a people industry.
We say we don't invest in training, and we don't
invest in training, and we let technologies come in and actually define our processes for us, and so on and so forth. But there are good operators out there that do that, and I think the best operators are the ones that are able to really balance out both technology and people and maintain that balance.
Good job, Facebook user. Whoever that is, that's exactly how I would say it. That's fabulous.
Yep.
Oh, I like that.
Much off on that one.
Wait, I feel like we're missing one more though.
I didn't see scalability in there. That was the one I was missing.
Okay. Is attribution out? That one's done. That hot road's over and dead. Now we've just got AI, CDP. But
that can perfectly also give you GA4 reports.
Oh yeah.
On all your attribution. There you go. Yeah.
There you go. There was the last little
transitioning. Yeah, we'll get that one in too. But there's nothing that makes me more feisty when we talk about, customer first than the CRM. And I know we're getting short on time, but I'm gonna put this one out there because I literally just had this conversation again. We continuously tell our salespeople that they need to do a better job in providing a customer experience. But I don't care what CRM you log into, look at the experience we are giving our salespeople. It is horrendous. Mm-hmm. They do not speak 95 different languages of ADF XML formatting. They do not go into 95 platforms. Get off yourself and your dashboards, get away from that as a whole, and would somebody please create a translator of all of this different stuff so that the salesperson actually understands what the customer is asking. Stop yelling at them for not answering a question that they can't even read. Sure. Okay, I'm off my soapbox now. I get really feisty about that one.
You on a roll there, kid.
And part of that, and I want to make sure that everybody knows who April is calling out in that statement. If you have not, as a manager in your dealership, or I don't care if you're a BDC manager, an internet sales manager, a desk manager, used car, whatever. If you as a manager have not taught your sales team how to read a lead so that they can meet the customer where they're coming from, that is your fault and not theirs. Mm-hmm. Just so we're all perfectly clear about that statement. That's not the CRM company's fault.
Well, most dealers do a good job of that.
What?
Most dealerships do a good job of that.
Of how to read the lead? Oh, BS.
He told you we were going to be smart asses. That was the best smart ass comment all day.
Good Lord. Like I actually had an issue, for instance, with a new GM who was adamant that the internet department was just terrible and atrocious. And so I said, okay, we're on a Zoom. I said, why don't you walk me through how you would handle this lead? If you are unhappy with their performance, start, open it up and read the lead. It was a fast call.
Would imagine.
Couldn't do it.
I can agree with that. Ganther says that revenue is the best KPI data in fields on your GSM's dashboard are not.
Where do you get the revenue data from then, James Ganther?
The financial
talk back to you.
It has to get to the financial statement from somewhere.
But listen, guys, I think the topic of today's show was the fact that sales is softening, right? And at the end of the day, dealers need to put pressure on the OEMs to actually come out with the incentives as soon as humanly possible. Without these incentives in the current high interest rate environment, and knowing how stretched American consumer is with inflation in all other areas, we're dead in the water. So dealers need to get their stuff together, right? And really put pressure on the OEMs, stop being afraid.
Yeah, but they got to take accountability for themselves. And I will, anybody who is on this show wants to reach out. We do a shoulda, woulda, coulda with the CRM data, James Ganther, for each salesperson or department to show them, what you could have done if you were working this process better. It is something that is just mind blowing for most dealers when they
Yeah.
actually see how many car deals they're leaving on the table, what they could capture using the system the right way and training their team.
We lost Jason.
Oh, I think he had a hard stop. We just hit 3:00.
He
It's
couldn't
been an
handle
hour already.
Jennifer. He couldn't handle you.
What the heck? Well, we had a hard stop at 3:00, but the show actually started at 3:02.
I know. James Ganther, you can fill them in with voice to text in the CRM. We got to go through, me and you got to get on a side thing, and I'm going to take you through some of this stuff.
Yeah.
You see, I wish I was as naive as this guy on the sideline, CJ Lyon. You know, my life would be so much easier. You know, when he says sales will only soften and fall if we allow them to. It doesn't work like that. There are macroeconomic forces, right, that prevent people from making certain buying decisions.
I think the point, like I said earlier, is if in lack of new car, you supplement with used car. It's
Everybody.
Yeah. Jim's like, see, we're still going.
Control your controllables. That's what he's trying to say.